Again, you are welcome back to class. We're still on the fourth module of the Scrum Master training, and this is lesson 7. We are just this lesson and another, which would be the last lesson to go. In the previous lessons in this module, we've looked at 6 other best practices in Scrum, and this is the 7th one. If I remember well, we've spoken about the interrupt buffer. We've discussed about yesterday's weather. We've discussed about swarming. We've talked about daily clean code. We've also discussed about the stable team. And in the last lesson, we spoke about the happiness metrics. And this is the 7th lesson. In this 7th lesson, we would be looking at a practice with a team that finishes early accelerates faster. A team that finishes early accelerates faster. So what does this mean? This actually sounds just logical. It's just a logical statement. But this logic had been demonstrated, had been well thought out, had been practiced. It has been propounded to be true that a team that finishes early accelerates faster. Let's put our mind back to the product backlog. One moment, let me get my pen. This is the product backlog. And in your product backlog, you have different stories to work on. So what this practice or this culture talks about is when a team focuses on just few work per time in the sprint rather than committing to so many tasks beyond what they can undo in a sprint. The team that commits to fewer would finish early. And what that does is when they finish early, they would be able to go back to pick more work. And in actual sense, I have practicalized this over the years with my teams, where I would find some ways to insist that the total work we commit to in a sprint should be measured against what the team's velocity had always been. Rather than over committing to task, let us pick on what we can finish in time. Let's look at this picture on the screen for a moment. On the left, we can see this individual and the other person having a conversation. Hey, we can pull more item into the sprint. Why? Because in his hand, he has done. So the task at hand had been done. It has been finished. So he's communicating with the other person that we can pull more work items into the sprint from future sprints, mind you. Then the other response, great, let's look at the backlog. The backlog. Either you want to look at future sprints that you've prepared from your backlog requirements, or you want to look at your product backlog if you do not have work that is ready to sprint in your sprint placeholders. Then he responds or thought to himself, I think we can increase the size of the next sprint. Why? Because they take a few that they can deliver on per time. Imagine you have two persons demonstrating how to eat. Well, some of us may disagree with this analogy that I want to make. One person puts a portion of food in his mouth that the mouth can accommodate per time. That could aid him to eat faster compared to another that stocks everything in his mouth. Or let's use another illustration, because I'm sure some of you could argue that the more food you have in your mouth, the more you can eat, like some typical politicians from some places that I do not want to mention, that want to stock their mouths even when they can't take some more, right? So let's use an analogy of you having just two arms and two hands, and you are giving work or benefit is passed to you from time to time at interval. As long as those benefits keep rolling in, right, you can pass them on. But when suddenly you have your hand overfilled with a lot per time, you may tend to struggle with that. But what this practice is telling us is that it is an idea that a team which consistently completes its planned work ahead of schedule is likely to improve its efficiency and velocity over time. A team that consistently completes its work, the planned work, ahead of schedule is likely to improve its efficiency and velocity over time. And what are some of those benefits? Such a team would be stable. They will work at stable pace. They can always focus. They can always continuously improve. And of course, business can also predict the workability or the efficiency or effectiveness of that team. Such a team can pull more work when the one they are finished with is done with. Thus, they gather momentum as they go on. And more critically, this is very important, please note, this practice is one of the ways Scrum reduces wastages. That brings us to the other picture here on the right side. You can see this guy overloaded with different work, is struggling and is in work debt, right? There are so much for them to do, and they will have a lot of unfinished work from time to time. They will have work items that are nearly done. They wouldn't be done. A lot of them will be nearly done. Why? Because one person focuses on different tasks per time. You want to do this, 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 and that would eventually lead to burnout. Right? So a team that finishes early accelerates faster. Let's look at some of the considerations quickly. I've mentioned some of them. Number one is it's important for us to set realistic goals. We should set realistic goals. As a Scrum Master, you want to encourage the team, including the product owner, to focus only on realistic goals. There is no point personally for me, it doesn't make work sense for you to commit to so much work that you know that you can't complete in that sprint. You will see some teams, they will commit to work that they know they can only deliver less than 25% in a sprint. So why do you have those work items on your board? So you want to set realistic goals. I've spoken about sustainable pace earlier. So it encourages sustainable pace and it improves quality. Of course, obviously, because each story gets done in time. Of course, also, it optimizes the workflow. Your work pattern will be smooth. Then it empowers the team. The team will be more self-organized. No one will be breathing over them, right? And it promotes cross-functionality. Everyone begins to support everyone. Everyone begins to manifest more in their capacity. Then, of course, for review and reflection. And it's important, lastly, to celebrate successes. For every piece of work that gets moved to done should be celebrated. And one of the avenues you do that is during retros, when you commend your team members for great efforts. So that will be the end of this class. If you have any question, please let me know. We will now go over to the last one for the fourth module, and of course in this training on the Scrum Master role. Thank you.